Hi everyone! Oh my gosh, I know 2 days in a row, Microsoft and APNI. Isn't it such a dream? It's just like a perfect team made in heaven. I know that's how you guys are feeling as well. That's how I'm feeling. And before I talk any further, my name is Grace Oladipo, and I am the student coordinator at APNI, so the African Professional Network of Ireland. And like I said last night, if you were not there last night, because you probably weren't there last night, this is our first collaboration with Microsoft, and we are loving it so far. As you can see from the smile on my face, I am having an absolute ball. And I know that you guys are going to have an absolute ball tonight too. So APNI was founded in 2016, and it is a non-profit organization that aims to connect. So we want to create an environment where like-minded and ambitious people like yourselves can meet and share information. Secondly, we want to empower young professionals to reach their full potential, and we do this through workshops, mentoring, and support from members and affiliates. Finally, we want to collaborate, which is what you're seeing here tonight. We want to foster a culture of sharing of ideas and collaboration between individuals from diverse professional backgrounds. And you guys are all from diverse professional backgrounds. And so we do this through partnered delivered theme events like this, webinars, workshops, and awards and competitions. And since our inception, we have grown to over 3,500 online members. And we realize that it is so important to talk about representation and to continue the conversation. In fact, we want to make sure that each and every one of you is able to leverage every single resource in your hands to make sure that your business is scalable and your business is excelling in everything that you are doing. And so we brought Adaptable here tonight, the Accelerator tools to adopt and grow your business. Yes, that's right. We want you to adopt your business. We want you to grow your business. We want you to excel in what you're doing. And we want you to change every single field that you are in, whether it's fashion, whether it's food, because I love food, whether it's tech, whatever it is, we want you guys to dominate every single sphere. And that's why we have brought this here to make sure that you have all the resources, every single resource that you need. So comment below, let us know that you're here, let us know that you're excited to see what we have for you guys tonight. I know that the Microsoft team is ready to go. Andrew is ready to drop wisdom, to drop gems, to drop knowledge. And I hope you guys are ready to take notes because you're going to need it after this. Make sure you implement everything you're learning. All right, I'll see you guys soon. Have a lovely, lovely evening. Bye. I'm going to leave you in the able hands of Shegun, I believe. Andrew. Andrew's able hands.
Amazing. Oh my goodness. Talk about setting me up. I mean, I really, really hope, Grace, that I'm actually able to deliver on that promise. Because I have to say that is an incredible start. You're bringing amazing energy. Look, I'm new to the APNI as well. This is the first time I've actually engaged with you all. So thank you so much for the opportunity, first of all, to engage with this community. I'm genuinely really excited. Adaptable. It's not the fastest or the strongest that survive, but the ones that are able to adapt. How true is that at the moment, hey? What have we seen in the last 12 months? What have we seen about the amount of change that's actually gone on over the last 12 months? So the aim of this presentation is, well, first of all, I want it to be interactive. I want to see stuff coming up in the chat window. I don't know if we can see that. Shagun, can we see stuff in the chat window? That's what I want to know. Is it possible? He's looking around. He's wondering. He's going, I'm not sure, Andrew. He's going to come back to me. But what I would love is we want to make this interactive. So as I go through, like Grace said, absolutely make notes. Absolutely come back to me. And as we go through, if you've got questions, hit me with questions as well. So I just want to double check. Shagun, give me the thumbs up if you can see my slide that says adaptable. Good stuff. Thank you very much. Can you see me as well, just out of interest? Excellent. Look at this. I love it. So forgive me if I keep on looking over
Andrew,
here.
sorry about that. Sorry about that. I was struggling with my mute button. But yes, I can see you. I can see your slides and you look wonderful.
Ah, what a guy. What a guy. Look at this flattery and everything. I've got Grace on one side building it up. I've got Shagun reinforcing that as well. I feel good. I feel strong. This is great. So look, my name is Andrew Macadam. I am the Managing Director for Microsoft for Startups. My direct responsibility is in Europe. So I cover somewhere in the region of 27 countries at the moment, but I also run the teams in LATAM, in Middle East Africa, in India, and in Australia Pacific as well. So I've got a pretty sort of broad perspective. In my time, in my tenure in Microsoft, I've probably worked with over 1,500 startups since I've been here. And to be honest, one of the things that I try and do is I try and adapt what I'm about to talk to you about depending on the audience that I'm speaking to. So who are you? What do you want to learn? I would love to get some sort of feedback. And unfortunately, at the moment, I'm not sure whether it's going to show up as show Q&A. Maybe that's what I should look at, or show conversation.
No, we show Q&A.
Show Q&A. I'm going to keep
them as well.
Awesome. Thanks, Shagan. And forgive me if I keep on looking over here. I've got a couple of screens going on. I've got my slides here. I've got the conversation going there. But that's just so that I don't miss out on any questions that you might have as we go through. So what are you about to experience? Well, it's a little bit of a few things. Well, first of all, don't forget, if you want to get in touch with me, I'm very open. I'm very transparent. This is how you can communicate with me. So if you found it interesting, if you've thought of things actually that I can do better, I'd love to hear your feedback. Okay. If there are ways that we can help you, let me know. That's really what we're all about at the moment. What can we do to help? So Adaptable. Okay. And it's quite interesting actually, because sometimes people go, well, Andrew, you work for Microsoft, one of the biggest companies on the planet. What on earth do you know about needing to adapt? And what's been fascinating actually has been the massive cultural shift that we've actually been through over the last few years. And it's down to this man, Satya Nadella. Oh yeah, by the way, this is also going to be a reading list. As we go through, I'm trying to give you referenceable material that you will be able to take away and have a look at. And this is an amazing book about his own background, his history, how he got to where he's got to, and what he's really trying to do at the moment. And it's been fascinating because Microsoft, let's be brutally honest, where did we come from? We were really good as the fast follower. We were really good at the point where we went, oh, we can see something and we can adapt and we can change and we can copy it really quickly and then we can go to market with it. But you know what? In the times that we now live in, that doesn't work anymore. It's actually about having the courage to set your own direction. And one of the things that Shagun has definitely informed me about the APNI, it's a group of people that are actually brave, have the courage to set your own direction as well. So what happened in Microsoft? We went from this PC company to this server company to a cloud-first organization. We went through this massive shift, and culturally, one of the biggest changes we went through as well. Let's be honest, we kind of used to be known as the know-it-alls. We would walk into the room and be very proud of the fact that we had all the answers. Now, what's the new culture? It's learn it all. It's showing curiosity, a hunger to actually learn things from other people, which is why, don't worry, my details will be there at the end as well. I'm hungry to learn from you as well. What can I do to actually make this better and more valuable to you as a community? So how do we kick it off? When I speak to startups, when I work with these businesses, what are the things? What's the first thing that I always start with? Big fan, don't know if you've read it, Simon Sinek, Start With Why. What about you, Shagun? Have you read this one?
I have, Andrew. It's a great book.
It's a great book, isn't it? And it's amazing because how often do we forget to start with why? We go into how am I going to do that? We go into what's the impact that I'm looking. Any sales, look, you're a sales guy, aren't you, Shagun?
I am.
You are indeed. You're all about the numbers. You're all about the impact. But the thing is, I also know you well enough to know that you do ask this question. You ask the why. You start with why with your customers. Why are they going to engage with me? Why would they give me their time? Why would they give me their effort? When you start with why, it gives you a completely different perspective. And it's a really, really important perspective and a great way of thinking about it. So when you start with why, you start with curiosity. Now, this book, if everyone's to believe, every single person in Microsoft has both bought this book and read this book. I still find this hard to believe, but you know what? This is actually, again, one of those amazing books that for me, it was actually quite transformational. I read this about 5-6 years ago. And what was really interesting for me is, I'm going to be honest, I was taught that actually you did need to have the answers, especially I worked in Vodafone before this. I worked in Microsoft. You needed to have the answers. And Carol Dweck actually took me on this journey that actually completely changed my perspective on the way that I actually think about, the way that I was curious about how I could get better. And the thing I really love about this book, actually, it's not just in my work life that I use this now, it's actually in my personal life with my children as well. I actually think about, it's not necessarily about the output. It's actually about the effort. It's about the energy that you bring to things. It's about seeking feedback, being curious, actually doing things to improve. And you know what? If you fail, as long as you seek feedback in that journey, as long as you, and I always say, there's nothing wrong with failing. Don't make the same mistake twice, and don't enter into things blindly. Get as much information as you can in a period of time that you can do it to have the most impact, and be curious. And you know what? Anecdotally, great stories in this book, and something that you can apply both in your professional life and in your personal. So here's one for the audience. I don't think, oh, we got published, okay. Welcome. Okay, this was Shogun himself, joining from Dublin, Anonymous. Welcome, Anonymous. I'd love to see, I don't know if we can actually do a poll in the audience. I'm not sure whether you can, but love to hear, has anyone actually done a business model canvas? Shogun, have you heard of this?
I have. It's like a template, right, for business ideas.
Exactly. And the thing about it is, and I always say this is a great place to start or continue, because again, people look at me and go, you're a Microsoft. What the hell are you using business model canvas for? And you know what? When you break it down, what is it? It's something that you can use for a team. You can use it for an idea. You can use it for a division. You can use it for a company. I've literally, in fact, I genuinely don't even know how many of these I've done. I've done hundreds, if not thousands of them. And what I actually do is every time I meet a company, I do this in my head. So I actually, and test me, Shaker. No, I'm joking. I know this, I've done this so many times that literally I visualize this in my head when I'm actually talking to a business. I cannot stress how important and how valuable this can be. And as I say, I work in Microsoft and I still use this in my own job. But the question is, if you have done this, if you haven't done this, take a screenshot. This is really useful because there's loads of questions that I put on here that you can actually use to challenge yourself. And just so we're clear, the way that I do this is I do one for where I am now. I do one for where I want to be. And sometimes you do it on a good old whiteboard. Do you like my whiteboard? This was my first COVID investment. I cannot survive without a whiteboard. So this is what came into my office as soon as I started. But you can do it two ways. You can chuck it up on a whiteboard. You can have post-it notes in one color for where you are now, post-it notes for another color of where you want to be, or 2 sheets of paper, however you want to do it, digitally, etc. But you go, this is where I am, this is where I want to be. And then you do the gap analysis. What are the gaps? What are the things that are actually stopping me getting from this point to this point? And what you actually start doing, when you start asking these questions, it's amazing how quickly you get to the point where you realize, my God, sometimes I'm further down than I realized. And you'll find in parts you're way further down than you realized, but in other parts you're not. And the good news is, if you're even unsure about how do I find out about all this stuff, we're going to be going through a few tips and tricks and a few more resources, a few more books that you can use to actually help you fill this in as well. What's really interesting is, if you've never done this before, so many people start at this point. This is the classic how and the what rather than the why. They instantly look at, what do I have? What can I use? What are my resources? Or they look at, what are the activities that I can do? But you know what's really interesting? This is your why, the value proposition. So if I was to ask on the call at the moment, look at this, we've got people from Dublin and Cork, watching from Galway as well, someone from Nigeria. Excellent, great to have you on the call as well.
By the way, Andrew, you can do a poll. Just keep in mind that there's about a 10-second delay.
Perfect. So let's do that poll. How many people here have done? Do I have to do it, or are you going to do it for me, Shogun?
Now you can say it to them, and then I'll publish it once they.
Excellent.
Once they type in the chat.
How many people on this call have done a business model canvas? Let's find out. Da, 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 da. No, I'm joking. I'm not going to start counting down. So the thing about this is value proposition. This is where I always find the gaps. You know why? Because people don't start with why, and it's a challenge. So what we're going to do, and if you can articulate the value proposition, it's amazing how it changes. So normally, and I know we can't bring people into the call. I know that we can't. I know that we can't just sort of jump on here and sort of say, "Come on up and do this with us." But normally, what I would do at this point is say, "Who here feels confident enough to actually do their value proposition?" It's a fun question. It's a scary question.
Maybe we can ask them to put it in the chat box.
That would be awesome. Absolutely. Let's do that. If anyone feels, you see, the only downside is, my friend, by the time I get onto the next slide, which gives the answer, you know, we'll see what we'll see whether anyone's got the old copy and paste ready to go. Maybe someone's expecting this. But the thing about a value proposition is, if you have the ability to articulate it, if you can tell people what it is, it's amazing how quickly it helps you get an insight into the person that you're speaking to. And you can flip it around the other way as well. You listen to the person, and as part of a value proposition, there are going to be some key words. You might highlight some of them and lower the importance of others, depending on the audience you're actually sat with. I get this question quite often, actually, Sugan, around, you know, should my value proposition be different depending on the audience that I'm speaking to? And honestly, the answer can be yes. And this is why. I've got a great little cheat sheet here. How do I turn my value proposition into a message? And it's so simple. Now, there's actually, again, I run workshops where literally we will spend a whole morning on your value proposition, because there's a lot of work that you can do. But at the highest possible level, this is what you're doing. You say, what are the products, services, solution that you're delivering? Who do they help? What is the customer segment that you're actually helping? What are the jobs that they do? So already you can see how you might tailor your message slightly depending on the audience you're speaking to. But the next bit is the bit that so many people forget. They talk about their solution, they talk about who it's for and what they want to do. But do they then give the pain? Do they help them understand the pain that you're removing and the gain, ultimately, that they will get from doing it? And it's these two final bits when it comes to value proposition. If you can say it, if you can articulate it really clearly, it's amazing the difference it makes. So here you go. Here's one I prepared earlier. I'm going to give a little plug to the Microsoft for Startups program. So what do? We help startups who want to scale their business by reducing the complexity of engaging the Microsoft ecosystem. I know that's a bit wordy. I get that. And what does it do? What's the gain? It accelerates the revenue growth. That bit in the middle, though, one of the biggest superpowers that we have can also be one of the biggest challenges that you face when engaging with a company the size of Microsoft, is the sheer size and complexity of that organization. Because it's not just about Microsoft. It's not just about the amazing people like Shogun in the organization. It's actually all our customers and our partners. Remember what I was showing you earlier about this. Think about key partners, resources, relationships, channels, segments, all of these things that Microsoft can actually help you with. But it's really complex. So what we try to do, reduce that complexity. So
I think the revenue growth bit is really important as well, right? Because
absolutely, man. And you know what, Sugar? It's really interesting because sometimes, and one of the things I found is that there was we love our acronyms in Microsoft. There's an acronym ABCD.
Never heard
Always,
that one.
You've not heard that one, okay? Always be customer developing. Okay. Because the temptation is you've developed something that you believe in so much, you have no idea why anyone wouldn't buy it. You're like going, this is like the most amazing idea. Because that's what entrepreneurs do. They bring this unbelievable energy and passion to what they're selling and to the idea that they've got. But sometimes they forget that they actually need someone to pay for that. That revenue that you just talked about there, Sugar, is really important, because you can get funding and you can get grants, and we'll talk about that later on. I'll give you some ideas around how to go about that process. But ultimately, if you're not finding a way of actually bringing that revenue in, Is it sustainable? No. So this book, and if my team are on the call, I think Kelvin's on the call for my team at the moment, but literally this is my most referred to book. And the reason is a lot of people do not feel like they are salespeople. Now, the best salespeople I know say there are 2 of these and only 1 of these. They listen twice as much as they talk. And I do understand the irony. Andrew, you're doing all the talking at the moment. I know, but I'm not selling. This is a presentation. Okay, so I let myself off in this particular scenario. But the really important thing is when you're selling, when you're going out there and you're trying to get buy-in, it's really tempting to tell people about what you do rather than actually understanding the problems that your solution helps them overcome. But it's so much more powerful if you can get that insight from your customers, if you can get them to tell you what the problem is. And this is the test for you, see if this feels familiar. You walk away or you go into a meeting and someone says, God, that sounds good. Yeah, I'd buy that. That's a great idea. I guarantee there are people on the call at the moment, they're going, yeah, that's it. That's exactly it. I get that all the time, Andrew. And then you walk away and you go, oh, that meeting went really well. You go back to the office, you go back to your friends, you go back to your team and you go, it went really well. We're getting so much positive feedback. Everyone I talk to loves it. Well, what is that? It's compliments. It's fluff. It's future thinking. Yeah, I would buy that. It's not saying I will. It's not saying I will sign on the dotted line right now to have that product or solution. It's thinking in the future. And it's compliments. And you know why? Because people don't want to be insulting to you. Listen, we're all based here in Ireland. I know it doesn't sound like it. I've been here 20 years and I still sound like this. And I apologize, but I'm based just in a lovely little town called Greystones. And you know, here's a great insight into Irish history. You might already know this. Forgive me if you do. But did you know there is no word for the word no in the Irish language? So in Irish, yeah, the word is kneel, which means not. And it's used in conjunction with descriptive words or active words. So it's like have not, shall not, will not. But there's no actual word for the word no. So think about that from a sales perspective. They're not going to sit there and go, that's a terrible idea. I would never buy that. They're going to say nice things to you. That's really challenging. How, as a salesperson, do you get through that? The mum test, have a read, 120 pages, super short, loads of anecdotes, loads of advice. And the beauty is, I'm going to tell you the secret. If you want to, go to the back and it's got all the checklists of what you need to do. I would strongly recommend that you still read the book, but if you don't have enough time, it's brilliant from the perspective of giving you those real insights, actionable insights around what you can do. And this is the advice. You talk, you ask about their life. You don't talk about your idea. You ask for specifics in the past instead of generics or opinions of the future. So what does that mean? That means that you say, you know, you ask some questions. When was the last time you experienced that problem? How did you solve it? Why did you take that approach? Okay, you don't go, what would you do in the future if it happened again? You understand what they've done in the past. You talk less and listen more. And the hardest thing, this is the hardest part about the mum test. You have to ask questions that will potentially break your model. And none of us like that. Not with the amount of energy that we put into these things. But that is where customer development actually becomes really valuable. Okay, so what have we done so far? You've got your business model. You've thought about all those different questions you need to ask. You've looked at where you are and where you need to get to. Then you've tested this. You've done that customer development. Now what you need to do is you actually need to bring it to market. You need to think about, see this bit down here, all these highlights? You need to think about relationships and channels and the segmentation. What activities are you going to do? Which partners might you need? So, Shagun, you said a second ago, you said revenues, that it's like that really important part, yeah? And this is Mark Andreessen, okay? You might know that name, you might not, but Andreessen Horowitz, biggest, probably one of the, if not the biggest venture capital firm in the world. These guys have funds of billions upon billions of dollars. And the number one reason why they pass on entrepreneurs is because they're focusing on the product or the solution to the exclusion of everything else, including revenue, including customer development, including getting that message out there. So this is a great book. I don't know if you can see, actually, it does say it's Gabriel Weinberg is the author, and it's called Traction. So Traction is all about the routes to market, your marketing routes that you can do to engage with customers. So if I asked a question, and again, I think we've got a slight time delay, unfortunately. So I'm not seeing, I've seen it, but very good, Jimmy. Nice one, thanks. So Jimmy, just so you know, what I will do, I have a reading list. I will share with all of you. I will send it to Shagun. He will make sure that everyone can get the reading list. And I'm always interested in more books that I should be reading. So I'd love to hear from people in the audience as well. What are the books that we should all be reading to help us improve our business? But normally at this point as well, I'll say, okay, so people on the call, what have you tried to actually do to engage with customers? And I guarantee, because this happens all the time, these are the things that you've probably tried, okay? Blogs and publicity and unconventional PR. I always love that one. Who's great at that in Ireland? Paddy Power. Unconventional PR. They disrupt, they cause aggro all over the place. Search engine marketing, clear, obvious stuff. Social and display ads, Facebook, Twitter, you name it. Guarantee. SEO, I bet everyone on here has tried a bit of SEO. How do I get above the fold on the first page? I want to be, when people type in those words, I want to be there. Content marketing, this is a good one. Now, some of you might have tried some of these, one of these. Some of you might have tried all of these. But have you tried all of these as well? There's so much that you can do. And what's really interesting, and the thing I love about this book, Traction, Weinberg, the thing I love about this book is it actually makes it tangible. I think sometimes when it comes to marketing, when it comes to gaining traction, it feels like this intangible concept that's really difficult to get our heads around. And what this does is it actually breaks it down. Each one of these has its own section in there, examples of how people have done it, what they've done. But most importantly, it's also about how do you measure it? Because, for example, when I look at this, targeting blogs, amazing way of getting engagement with potential customers, also with advocates, people that will go out there and say what an amazing person you are. But it takes time. Whereas social and display ads can be super quick, but they're expensive. So you need to work out, you need to go through this process, and you need to quantify, you need to become intentional about what you're doing when it comes to gaining traction, when it comes to engaging that audience, because all of these will have the opportunity to have some sort of impact, but is the energy, is the financial implication actually justified by the return on that investment? And the thing I love about Traction is it gives you all the frameworks that you need to be able to work that out. So normally at this point, I go, who here considers themselves to be a salesperson? Now, Shagun has already told me he thinks he's a salesman, and I know he is a very successful one at that as well. But the interesting thing is, a lot of people, whenever I ask this question, they go, "Nah, I'm not sales. I'm finance, or I'm IT. No interest in that. I'm in marketing. I'm not in sales." The one bit of advice, and this is one of those things. I'm sure we have founders, we have people that have set up their own businesses. Go and ask other people in your organization. Now, you have to know it yourself first. Fortunately, you've already done that exercise earlier on around articulating your value proposition. But go and ask your team now. Do they know what our value prop is? Do we know how we're differentiated? Do we know what problems we're solving and what gains we're giving to our customers? Do we even know who our customers are? Because you know what? Everyone needs to know this. It's critical because every single person has the opportunity to create opportunities for your business. And you know what's even more interesting, actually? As small businesses, one of your superpowers is the fact that you have this knowledge, this deep knowledge around why you're doing what you're doing. But I will ask you, do you know how to articulate that really clearly? Here's a great expression. People in the past talked about caveat emptor, and it was right. It means buyer beware. Okay, buyer beware. So people used to be afraid. Like, they knew that salesperson coming in, because in the world that we used to live in, information was hard to come by. It was that knowledge that gave the salesperson power. However, think about the age that we're now in. Think about how things have changed so dramatically. And we're now into caveat venditor, beware seller. Because you know what? When we go out there and talk to people, they've done their research. They've checked reviews. They've talked to other people. They've used LinkedIn. They've tracked what you're doing. And look, I'm not saying that everyone does that, but the opportunity is there. So you need to go out there and you need to be confident, and you need to make sure your team is confident about that value proposition. And here are 2 questions. If you don't think you're a salesperson, but the person you're selling to agrees to buy, will their life improve? And when the interaction's over, will the world be a better place than when you began? And if the answer to those 2 questions is yes, not really that bad being a salesperson, is it? And the way that you do it is not like a secondhand car salesperson or and I almost feel like one at times, the Bible thumping preacher and what have you. It's more about really thinking about why you're doing what you're doing. And you know what? If the answer to those 2 questions isn't positive, maybe you need to start with why again. Maybe it's just a slight change that's needed. Or it's the audience you're speaking to. Negotiation. So you've done all the hard work. Think about this. You've built your business model. You've tested it with customers. You've got traction. You've tried all those different routes. You've gone out there. You've had the meetings. You've done the mom test. Everything's going brilliantly. They want to give you money. And then you go into negotiation. This is so tough if you're not used to it. So tough. Great book, Stuart Diamond, Getting More. And again, I've used this, and it even says how you can negotiate to succeed in work and life. I've used this to get upgrades on planes, discounts on buying cars, discounts on sandwiches. I mean, literally, the knowledge that you can get from this kind of book. And do you know what it's all about? It's about listening. It's about empathy. It's about compromise. It's about when you sit down and talk to someone, you don't talk to them. You sit down and listen to someone. Negotiation, so much of it is about actually thinking about value. What value you're giving versus looking back. You want money, but you're giving them a service or a solution. Normally, there are things of unequal value that people will happily compromise on, but you need to talk and listen to really understand. It's another great book as well, by the way, because it even gives you a little card with the 20 questions, depending on the stage of the journey, 5 for each of the areas that you're on. But I've not put it up here for you because you need to do some reading as well. But it's a great, great way of understanding. And out of this as well, you might go, do you know what, Andrew? That's not something I'm comfortable with. So never forget, think about partners, think about other people that might help you. Because if you don't have the resource, you're not going to be able to generate the revenue. So you might need someone else to give you a hand. Now, this is a fun one, funded. Shogun, you can check and see if anyone in the audience, has anyone in the audience tried to get funding, either from a VC, from a grant, whatever? Because this is one of the things, especially in the tech industry, that people are really focused on. How do I get the money? I want to grow. How do I get the money?
Yeah, I'll let you know if we get anything back on that. Another thing people are wondering is, are we going to be able to share the slides?
Go on then. Since it's the APNI, we'll share the slides. Absolutely. Of course we will. With pleasure. With pleasure. So, communicating with investors. So this again, this is like a day in and of itself, okay, when it comes to the steps. But I found this just to be really useful. Again, in the same way that I use the business model canvas, I keep this in my head as well when I'm speaking to startups. Because if they understand their purpose, their why, if they understand their problem and solution, their value proposition. If they understand the why now, what is the imperative? What is the pain that their customers are experiencing? How big's the market? Then you get into the product. This is what we do, and this is how we do it. Who else is doing it? The competition. How do we bring it to them? And I love the fact there's a box on here as well. It makes me laugh because it's like, oh yes, we bring a product to market. So many things that we're doing at the moment now. It's nothing to do with a tangible. It's to do with a solution. It's a service industry. Ireland is an unbelievably service industry-led country. So how do we bring that to market? What is your business model? The team. Who's in the team? What's their experience? Are you helping the investors understand that? Financials. How much does it cost? What are all our costs? And how much money do we make? And how do we make it? They're investors. They need to know this. And then ultimately, and this is always an interesting one, because this is real tech startup investment talk. Exit. This is how in 3, 5, 7, 9 years you're going to get 3, 5, 10, 20x on your investment. And some investors, this is actually one of the most important things. Not always critical, but an important thing to think about. So I'm going to test you, Shagun. If you look at this, there are 2 things on this screen. So a very good friend of mine set up a company called Investor Sheet. He interviewed 800 investors over a period of about 12 months. He did not stop on the phone. And he polled them every single time. And he said, you know, what's the most important thing? Or he actually said, what are the 2 most important things to you when it comes to investment? So what do you think the 2 most, I'm putting you on the spot here, I know, I'm such a mean person. Normally I do this to an entire audience. Which 2 do you think are the most important?
I think financials is definitely one of them.
Yeah.
The other one I would say is, let's see. This one's tricky.
Yeah.
Purpose. I'll go with purpose.
Oh, okay. I like that. I like that a lot, because you know what? Oh, is Grace getting involved as well? Grace, are you gonna give us your thoughts as well? So we've got I almost gave it away, but Grace is going to join in. This is cool. We had financials and purpose. What do you think, Grace?
I think problem and solution, just because there's no point creating a product that doesn't solve a problem. And yeah, I'd say team or financials. I'm stuck.
Oh,
team.
Okay.
I'd say team.
I love it. I love it. So between you got the 2.
Okay.
And now you're both going, oh, is it purpose and problem, team and financial? Which one was it, Andrew? Tell us. I'm not going to tell you. I'm joking. Of course I'm going to tell you. I'd never be that mean. It was financials. You are right, Shagun. It was financials. Because you know what? They're interested in that. And I think it was somewhere in the region of 65, 70% of them came back with that. However, over 90% of them, team. They want to know who your team is. They want to know the experience, the war wounds, the successes, and everything else in between. They want to know how it's set up. They want to know the value that you all bring. Team is the most important thing, literally the most important thing, because you were right, by the way, Grace, don't get me wrong, problem and solution. And Shagun, hell yeah, start with why, the purpose. And they are incredibly important when it comes to articulating, because don't get me wrong, you can have the best team and the best financials, but if everything else isn't working, it doesn't matter. But those are the 2 things that always tip it in your favor, being able to talk about them. Yeah, quick bit of advice. Yeah, sorry, man.
No, I'm just saying that was pretty profound, the team bit. You know, of course it is important, but it's nice to get that source, the fact that investors really prioritize that.
Honestly, and I have to say, I remember I've had a lot of VCs. Literally last night we ran an event. We had 35 investors, 40 investors from 33 companies in 17 countries at an event last night that we ran. And again, we were talking about team. We were talking about, one of the key topics that came up was, and they were really concerned at the moment around how a team's growing in the challenge that we face at the moment. How are they actually building and growing their teams? So it's a real challenge at the moment as well. So quick one for you all. If you're going to go down the investment route, start before you need to. Most important thing you can do. Don't start a conversation when you need the money. Start it way before. Be clear on your why. Shagun, you were right, my friend. The purpose. You need to be clear on your why. Use your network. And this is critical. Okay? There's nothing easier than having a nice referral. But you need to be using that network. You need the hustle. You need that drive and that determination. And seek feedback as you go through the process. And if you're doing it early enough, and that's why you start before you need to, what can I do better? Seek that feedback. Be curious. And when I say leverage all the tools, what that means is in Ireland, we are actually exceptionally lucky. There are some amazing grants and ways of actually getting money without either giving up a huge amount of your business, and also through a bunch of the government schemes at the moment. So New Frontiers, EI, HPSU, lots of different ways of doing it. And just, as I say, use that network. Find those tools that will enable you to get it at a significantly lower cost. And then the final thing is, when you're doing well, whatever you do, don't get overinvested. The temptation sometimes is take as much money as you can get your hands on. But the problem with that comes with the responsibility. So the second, or the most important thing, was building your team. So I'm going to blast through these because I'm conscious of time. We've got 17 minutes. So I'm going to take 5 minutes to finish the slides, and we'll give Shagun and Grace an opportunity to grill me live. So when it comes to your team, have you defined your core values and culture? Because this always feels like something where people go, I'm too small to worry about that. But you know what? It is critical. If you don't know what your core values and the culture of your organization are at the start, suddenly you've got 5 people, then you've got 10 people, then you've got 20 people. By the time you get to 20 people, it's too late. It's defined. Did you define it? And I love this because I just put up 50 words, and literally go online. These might suit you, they might not suit you, but pick 3 or 4 of them that actually really help define the values that you're looking for in your organization. There's going to be one on there that everyone, I'm sure, will see straight away. I love that curiosity. I'm an optimist. I call myself a realist, a pragmatist, and an optimist. I'm a realist. Shit happens. Sorry, I said a naughty word. Forgive me. But it does. Stuff happens. I'm a pragmatist. So you know what? I'm going to find a way of solving it. And I'm an optimist. Because you know what? It's going to get better. And I think it's relevant, really relevant for the times that we're in at the moment as well. But look at these words. What words do you feel really help define the core values of your business? Talent. I talked about this. In the times that we're in at the moment, it's really tough to find talent. And you know what? One of the biggest challenges we face as well when it comes to recruiting teams is that awful thing of cognitive bias. What do? We hire people that are like us, that we like, that we get on well with. But is that what we need? No, it's what we like and what we want, but it might not be what we need. There's another great book, and this is Mark Roberge actually set up. Oh my God, my brain's gone to. He set up a massive sales company, CRM company. They're in Dublin. What are they called? HubSpot. There we go. Can't believe I forgot that. He basically set up the whole of the sales team in HubSpot. And the interesting thing about him is he was a quant. He was a financial analyst. He had no idea about sales teams. So he said, how do I bring a quant approach to recruitment? And it's a great way. Now, this is for a sales team. But to be honest, it's only the last piece of this. So he talks about 4 steps. How do you recruit? How do you train? How do you manage? And then how do you generate leads? So it's only that final piece, the generate leads, that's very sales oriented. Everything else is highly applicable regardless of what you're trying to recruit. And the key thing, like I talked about earlier on in traction, it's about giving you a framework that makes it quantifiable so that you actually find ways of removing your bias. One of the key things I would say to you is so many people look at experience rather than competencies. When it comes to hiring people, they go, oh, have they done this before? It's pattern matching. Pattern matching is not good. Past performance. What do you hear on all financial instruments when they're advertised? Past performance does not predict future. That's exactly the same when it comes to hiring talent. Just because they did it somewhere else doesn't mean they're going to do it for you, because there are so many variables that differ. But competencies, the competencies that they bring, problem solving is a great one. Test them for problem solving in an interview. Give them something difficult to think about and see how they cope. Do they show curiosity? Do they ask more questions? Or do they instantly try and answer? Is that what you want? Do you need someone with instant answers, or do you need a problem solver? It's a great way of thinking about the process. So again, Grace, you're here, so you get to answer this one. And Shagun, you're here as well, so you get to. Where would you prefer to work? So take a second, have a look at this. Ryanair or Emirates? I know it's a tough one, but Grace, where would you prefer to work?
To be honest, I think Emirates, just because every time I've been on a Ryanair plane, I haven't enjoyed the quality of what is presented to me. Whereas with Emirates, you get on a plane, the uniforms are great, the seats are great, the plane is big, the food is great.
Look at this.
Yeah.
Look at this. This sounds like a lady that turns left. That's all I'm saying, Grace. That's all I'm saying. It feels to me as though Grace has definitely enjoyed, let's say, some of the finer elements of flying. So fair play, Grace. And how about you, Shagun? Ryanair or Emirates?
I think Grace kind of nailed it. I don't think I have to add anything else to that. So, I used to live in Dubai, so I'm very familiar with Emirates. So
there we go. So look, obviously, I'm not asking everyone in the audience whether they want to start working for an airline. The test here is, and you guys both did brilliantly, because you actually already went on to my question, which is, what actually went through your mind when I asked this question? And I guarantee you, it was one of these things. And for you, Grace, it was experience. It was the identity. It was the proposition that both pulled you in one direction and pushed you from another. And you know what? This is so funny for me, because as soon as, if I just put up a slide and said, think about employer branding, think about your branding, people would have gone, it doesn't mean anything. But think about the emotion that you just experienced on that previous slide. And suddenly you realize the value of your brand in market. I'll jump over this one. It's important. How do you enable your team? How do you empower them to flourish? But it's a great book by Maureen Gaffney, and it talks about the way to help us flourish is you need to challenge people. You need to help them be connected to what they're doing, how they feel, their core values inside, and the work they're doing outside. You need to give them autonomy. If you constrict people, if you do not empower them to do that, they will not flourish. And ultimately, you need to let them use their valued competencies. I always put this one in because I think it's just a great way of thinking about what we can all do better to allow and enable our teams, empower our teams to flourish. Now this one, Harvard Business Review talks about this all the time. And this is also why I'm so pleased to be on the APNI. I'm so used to saying API all the time. I can't get used to the end, forgive me. But I'm so pleased to be in this environment because you know what I talk about all the time? It's about giving voices to underrepresented founders. Genuinely. One of the things that we're really trying to do in the Microsoft Startups program at the moment is actually work and help people understand the opportunity of how diversity and inclusion enables perspectives, innovation, and ultimately impact. But it's also really important that when you're building your teams that you think about this as well. As I said, Harvard Business Review, just go on that, literally type in diversity and inclusion impact. There are so many articles about the positive impact of being inclusive and diverse in your hiring. It can be age, it can be ethnicity, it can be gender, it can be disability or accessibility. There are so many different ways of looking at this, and all of them bring perspective. And I will be honest, it also talks about the fact that when you do that, the acceleration, the speed of impact slows down slightly. However, there's a glass ceiling with homogeneity. When you have too much of the same, there is a glass ceiling of impact that happens. Whereas with that diversity, it breaks through that ceiling. And ultimately, it might take a tiny bit longer, but it's worth it for the impact from that. And just a tool that we use in Microsoft that I found really, really helpful from an inclusion perspective is 10 behaviors. I hope Shogun has seen this. I'm sure he has. But this is a great way of just really testing yourself. Am I being inclusive? Am I? And one of the ones that I find all the time, one of the most useful ones that I think about is ensuring all voices are heard. And I know this is difficult in this scenario. I do understand the irony, but I love doing that because I think it's incredibly important. So we're almost there, everyone. Good news. We are almost there. So to summarize, I'm not going to summarize, don't be ridiculous. That was way too much information to take on board in one go. It's like drinking from the fire hose. And I'll be honest with you, one of the biggest challenges I face is I am consciously incompetent. I am aware of the fact there is so much I don't know, which makes me hungry. It makes me curious. It makes me want to learn more. But what it also helps me realize is because of the fact that I know there's so much I don't know, I rely on partners. I look to partners to help me be better. I look to partners to help the companies that I work with be better, scale more, learn more. And you know what, Grace, you said at the start, you said connect, empower, and collaborate. I loved that. It was like, oh, gave me little goosebumps when you started talking about that, because honestly, I think that's all of our opportunities at the moment. We're in the most connected age we have ever been in. But there's one little idiom that I love to use, which is, you know, that expression, good things come to those who wait. Nah. Good things come to those who go after what others are only waiting for. That is what I believe. And we do that through connection. We do that through collaboration. And you know what? I would change it. I would change the order. I would say connect, collaborate, and from that comes empowerment. That's what I feel. And that's why it just resonates so much with me, Grace. And it was so powerful to hear that at the start of all of this. You'll see up here. Yes, okay, I did the sales thing. I put you guys in the middle. But you know what? You're going to stay up there now because I'm proud of the fact that we've done this. But you'll see Backstage Capital, Black and Brown Founders, like Female Founders Alliance. You will see reflected up here what I believe is our opportunity to really empower and enable you. Final piece, look, if you want to, you can talk to us. This is what we do. We help startups. We surround you in an ecosystem, but I'm not here to talk about us. Hopefully, what you've got is some real value from this. And what I would say is, from next steps perspective, please follow me, follow Microsoft for Startups on LinkedIn. If what I've talked about has resonated with you, we do lots of events. There's a calendar of activity that we put up there, and it can be everything from technical to networking to business and everything in between. So make sure you get involved and talk to us in that community. If you want to learn a little bit more about the technical side of things, there is so much information that is available to you. And if you've got questions, come to us. So I'm going to say thank you very much indeed, both for the interactions that I did see and for the opportunity to talk to you. And I know, I'm sorry, I did go on a bit, Shogun. Hopefully you'll forgive me. But if there are any questions, I'd love to hear them.
Thank you so much for that, Andrew. I found it very insightful myself. I took a few notes, the book recommendations, and a lot of gems that you shared with us there. And I, for one, will definitely be going through the slides once I receive them. I will be sharing the slides with everyone. So we haven't really had any questions come through. I'll ask you a quick question in the meantime.
Please.
How practical is it for a new business to expect to be profitable in its first year? From your experience.
There are, what I would say, and let's put it this way. I've seen companies that are literally this year alone, okay? I had a company actually apply for the program today. They started on January the 10th, 2020, and they've already generated 1.2 million euro in revenue, okay? However, their team was exceptional. Their team's background, they knew their problem, they had it up and running, they've done some really clever stuff, they're building on top of someone else's value, but they're adding their own layer of value as well. They already had connections with customers. So a lot of the hard work was already in place. I've got other companies that are 3 years old and are still cash flow negative. They're still taking investment rather than revenue margin positive. So there are a lot of variables. But what I would say is there's nothing wrong with not generating money in the first year, but whatever you do, understand why it's not happening and be really, really clear around how you're going to get there. Because ultimately, Segun, honestly, the scariest thing for me is when I sit down with people and they go and they talk about burn rates rather than revenue or growth rates. When they talk about how much investment they're burning rather than the value they're creating. And I think those days are long gone. If there's a you know, and again, deep tech, for example, you need grants, you need that investment, you need government support, you need those things because it take, you know, the infrastructure and everything else that it takes to create those solutions. Yeah, that's different. But I think I would be very concerned, small business not generating margin positive within a year to 18 months.
Thanks for that, Andrew. And again, I'll just remind everyone, if you have any questions, please share them with us. I'll ask one more question, and if we don't have anything from the audience, we can then wrap up. Now, with COVID, right, and the whole situation that we're dealing with, you know, of course, a lot of businesses are, you know, suffering from this. However, and I suppose again, there are variables here in this question I'm asking, but in general, a lot of the things that you've shared with us today, I'm sure will help a company just be grounded and put them in a good position in these sort of turbulent times and help them adapt. So are there any particular trends that you're seeing that maybe in this COVID situation that maybe some companies are using to actually take advantage and thrive in this particular time?
Damn, good question. The answer is yes. There's and again, hilariously, this is, we were talking about this last night as well. What we've actually seen for the first time is massive, rapid adoption from big businesses of small company solutions. So this is where, think about the pain that people were going through 7 months ago when this madness, almost 8 months ago, when this madness all started. Think about how disconnected they were. Think about all the challenges they faced. And without a doubt, larger companies were going, we can't wait 6, 9, 12 months for our IT to develop new solutions. So without a doubt, there has been an incredible opportunity from that perspective. However, the flip side is a lot of the systems themselves still are not set up for small companies necessarily to thrive, i.e. they'll go, yeah, we're going to buy it, and then they stick them on a 90-day payment cycle. And all of a sudden, that small business is providing solutions for months before they actually see the revenue. So there's a, you know, there's still a challenge there. The healthcare sector actually was called out last night, again, as another area where it's unbelievable the amount of acceleration and adoption. And you know what? I heard this last night. It was I thought it was such an insightful thought. And the person was talking about the fact they had said they have never seen so much innovation in health tech in any industry, okay, since the Manhattan Project. So think about what happened with the Manhattan. Think about just the amount of resources and energy and focus that went into this area. And they said, and think about what's now happened in the medical space in the last 9 to 12 months. And the insightful bit was, it's not about what's happening now. It's the impact that it's going to have in the next 10, 15, 20 years. And that, for me, I thought that was really profound with regards to, there's without a doubt stuff that we're seeing in the super short term, you know, people making up, there are some being opportunistic, which I always find is very negative. It's taking it normally at others' expense. There are many that are finding opportunities, which is sustainable. That's how I like to differentiate between the two. It's probably my own definition. But I think what's going to be really interesting is what else is going to come out of this. So yeah, I would say those are some of the things definitely that I've seen very positive and challenging at the same time.
Really cool, really cool. So we've had some questions come in, and I
great.
think we're past 6:30, but let's see if we can run through them. So MJ is asking, what should be the expected profit margin for a startup in its first year?
100%. No, again, I mean, look, how long is a piece of string? It's one of those where ultimately what it comes down to is a balance between market size, potential, and one of the things I always do is look at cost of acquisition. Okay. Then I look at churn rates. So there's some really simple stuff that you can do. And it also is massively dependent on the industry that you're in. In the software space, there's a huge sunk cost in actually getting it all developed. And therefore, early stages, you're not going to have a huge margin. In fact, you might have zero margin. But as you then scale that, what do your margin levels look like? And that's where then cost of acquisition becomes absolutely critical. And this is suddenly where customer success becomes really important, because if you don't retain your customers, if you see a large churn rate, if you've got 3%, it doesn't sound like much, 3% month on month, that's not that much. Within 3 years, you need to have an entirely new customer base, because 3% month on month is 36% year on year, which turns into in fact, it's even compound, it's even more than that. But those are the variables that you need to think about. Okay, how much does it cost me to do? How much am I charging? One of the key things in the B2B space, in the business to business space, the biggest challenge I actually see is people not charging enough, because they've maybe come from a B2C, a consumer background. They're thinking about themselves. They're not thinking about large corporate entities. And I've actually seen people lose business because they're not charging enough. So here's another trick. If in doubt, when you're coming up with your cost, when you're thinking about sticking that contract in front of someone, if in doubt, add a zero. And I'm not joking. Put more value on it, not less value on it. Because the temptation, I'm a small business, I want to win this, it's really important to me. But you know what? I've seen people lose business because people have looked at it and gone, oh, they're cheap. Not going to do. I'm not joking. They've literally gone. I spoke to someone 4 weeks ago, and he said, we were cheaper. He said, we put it in the bid. We were 15,000. The tender was for 190,000. The person that won it put it in 189,000, and they won it. And the feedback we got was, we didn't feel as though you were actually delivering enough value. And they were like, what does that even mean? And what it actually meant was they didn't charge enough. Yeah.
That's cool. That's cool. So one from Nikai, how does a startup be part of Microsoft Startups? What is the process?
Okay, so talk to me. If basically what we look at is B2B, software as a service, cloud backend companies. So I know it's very specific, but you know what? That's where we add value as part of this process. I normally look at Series A and above, so we tend to be slightly later stage. But what I would say is this, and the reason I'm saying talk to me is, what we want to try and do is, even if you're not right for our program, there are other ways that we can support and engage with you. Okay, that's why I'm here today. I didn't come on here to talk about Microsoft for Startups. I came on here hopefully to add some value to your community and to your network, to help you understand some of those things that you can adapt your business models with. And that's what I want to do moving forward as well. So just let me know what I can do to help.
Perfect. Thank you for that, Andrew. Another question. Thank you for this. What do you think is key when entering into what may be considered a saturated market?
What do I think is key into going into what potentially is a saturated market? Okay. So if it's a saturated market, you're not going into it. Let's be honest. You're going in with something that will be differentiated. Because if you're not, don't do it. Like, just don't do it, because it's a race to the bottom. If it's saturated, invariably it becomes price differentiation, not value. So therefore, even if you're going into a really competitive market, there you go. It's amazing how language, a really competitive market, be really clear about your differentiation. Is it about the pain that you're removing? So remember, Drucker, what does he quote? 85% of decisions are based on risk, not opportunity. Honestly, I think it's higher than that. I think he's under-indexed. I think it's higher. I think way more decisions are based on risk. I think over 90, maybe even 95%. Opportunity, it's nice, but I'm telling you, it's risk, it's problems. What are you doing? So be really clear on how you're differentiated. Go back to that slide that I showed earlier. Talk about the competition. Who cares? Whoever you're speaking to already knows about it anyway. If you're in a saturated market, there's no point highlighting it, but then point out, listen to what they've said about the problems that you're going to help them with, and highlight against those. And that's the only possible way. And if you can't do that, it's a race to the bottom. And you know what? You can still make money, but it's not going to be the thing that ultimately leads to a fantastic exit when you're in a really competitive space.
Wonderful, wonderful. Listen, there's so much value coming out. I think we should definitely go through all the questions that are left. We have 3 here. Should your partners be more of financial or technical input, or is it best to balance those equally?
Did someone ask that, or is it just anonymous?
Anonymous.
Okay, so anonymous, what I would say to you is this. Look at yourself, look at your team, and work out where the gaps are. Be honest, hold that mirror up, challenge each other. What are we good at? What are we bad at? Where do we need help? And honestly, that will help answer that question. That's honestly the most effective way that I would always suggest. And ultimately, I always talk about, this is where that curiosity and that feedback comes in. Find people that will challenge you. Find people that, and give them permission to challenge you. There is, like, I always, whenever I'm speaking to startups, I always caveat it with respect. And what I mean by that is, I recognize the courage, the bravery, the risk that they are taking by setting up their own businesses. And I have nothing other than respect for people that do that. That's how I always start. And I say it's really easy to give advice. Really easy. But you're the one that has to do it. Okay? So look for people that have that, because then you can ask them, and you don't always have to do everything that people say. This is the thing. It's like, seek advice, take it away, put it in the cold light of day, bounce it off. Use the mum test on the advice you're getting. Talk to other people, challenge. Don't always accept it at face value. Don't accept everything I've said at face value. It's not all relevant to you, but hopefully parts of it will be. But when it comes to financial or technical, are you financially strong? Well, in that case, get someone technically strong to help you out and make sure you're doing the right things. Are you technically strong? Well, get someone financial. And don't forget the other components: sales, marketing, customer success, retaining all those people you've put effort into, operations, processes, HR. There are so many different things. It's not even as binary, unfortunately, as financial or technical. There's all those other elements as well.
Lovely, lovely. And the final question, I suppose this is a good one to set us off and just wrap up the call. And I imagine there's an element of everything you've said in this question. So the person is asking, considering there's a lot hanging over our heads with the times we're in, more particularly in Ireland with Brexit, COVID, climate change. If you were to be prescient, I'm not sure what that word means, to be honest. What futuristic steps should an entrepreneur engage in to thrive?
So prescient is having the ability to predict the future. I think is what the person's asking. There's a great book. One that I didn't include in the slides, but it's in my reading list, and I will make sure you all get it. And it's called Give and Take. And it's Grant. He actually has a blog called Granted, which is great as well. Really simple email he sends out. But I don't know. Have either of you read it? Give and Take?
I haven't.
No? Okay.
Great of you.
So the premise of the book is there are givers, there are takers, and there are matchers. Okay. As a human race, okay, we got to where we are because of our ability to match, as in we could not have survived without being there for each other, without you doing this and me doing that, and together we come together. There was one that did the fire, there was one that sharpened the stone, and there was one that went out and hunted, and then they brought it back and someone skinned it and someone cooked it. And without that, without the matching of effort, we would not be where we are. However, the book talks about the most successful people in the world are givers. The least successful people in the world are givers. And what it comes down to is understanding how and why you're giving the value that you are. So what I believe, what we all need to engage with or engage in to thrive, and I think it really comes down to exactly what Grace was saying at the start. I think by connecting with others, listening, empathizing, and being willing to give in a way that is valuable, but also using your valued competencies, then by collaborating and understanding